Hi, I'm Sheldon Cooper, and this is Fun with Flags.
Did I forget which podcast we're doing? Or video thing?
You know, The Big Bang Theory. Okay.
Here I thought we were doing Iron Man. Flags are fun too. So yeah, I'm some other guy from the show because you threw me for a blank and I can't remember the characters' names. I'll talk about the Norwegian flag.
No, we could just talk about Iron Man.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So we are back to our podcast. Okay. So, back by popular demand because you missed us. It's Just Saying with Mark
And Fallon.
and we are here to review the movie that started the entire cinematic universe for Marvel, Iron Man 1. The movie that started it all with him, Robert Downey Jr. I remember 2008 when there was a lot of hype for this movie when it was coming out. There was two Marvel movies coming out that summer. This one, and followed by The Incredible Hulk. Both were big deals. Marvel had done a lot of movies building up to that. They, they dabbled throughout the 90s, and then really in 2000 with the X-Men franchise, then Spider-Man, then they did Daredevil and Fantastic Four, and a lot of sequels to their own movies, but nothing really like what's about to come. I know there was a lot of hype. People thought, given Robert Downey Jr.'s track record with drugs and alcohol and all the trouble he had been in, that he really fit the Tony Stark persona. Perfect casting. I remember watching news footage of him prepping for the role, especially in the cave scene, and he looked incredible, and you could really, there was a lot of excitement building up to this one.
I think Robert Downey was perfect for this role. I think he is Iron Man. Like, I can't see anyone else doing that role. Like, I don't even think he's acting at this point. It's just him and his ego.
I remember there was a lot of hype that summer because you had this movie, you had The Incredible Hulk, you had a little movie called The Dark Knight it was going to compete against. The summer of 2008 was going to be a fun movie, and Iron Man was going to start it all. You had, like Fallon said, Robert Downey Jr., you had Gwyneth Paltrow as Pepper Potts, you had Jeff Bridges as the Ironmonger, and then you also had Obadiah, that's right, Stain, and then you had Terrence Howard as Rhodey.
As the original Rhodey.
As it turns out, just
May he
the
rest
original.
in peace.
Yes, Terrence Howard, I wasn't crazy about him in Iron Man 1.
No.
Even still watching the movie again, whenever his scenes come up,
It was very odd to watch because I hadn't watched it in a while, and it was just very jarring to see him again.
And when he does his line at the end of it, saying "next time, baby,"
I'm like, not for you, not for you.
So,
and it was because he wanted too much money.
Yeah, him and Robert Downey clashed in Marvel, and
I was very happy with the recast. I think Don Cheadle did. He's
introduced in Iron Man 2, the next one. So definitely. So if you can get through this one with Rhodey, it definitely gets better for us going forward. Which with any movie, you're really gonna, the first movie you're taking the chances, and then usually you're working out the kinks as you go forward. So with Iron Man 1, there weren't a lot of kinks in it, I don't think, except for maybe casting decisions. But as far as overall casting, I loved it. I loved the chemistry between Iron Man and Pepper.
Yeah, I really like their chemistry together. Pepperoni.
Pepperoni. I love the chemistry between villain and hero with Iron Man versus Ironmonger, and even the scenes in the cave. The guy that was taking care of him, was it? Yeah,
Jensen. I think he was the reason for Tony changing so much. I think because he he was. His motivation, giving him that speech about you don't waste your life and this is your legacy, and so I think he was very integral in Tony's comeback.
Especially with Jensen's line about how he's met Tony Stark before, but Tony wouldn't have remembered because Tony was a drunk playboy, philanthropist. He didn't going up into the cave scene. He was just a partier, didn't care. He was just all about the money and war profiteering. And then all of a sudden he gets a rude awakening when he sees what he does is doing to the world.
Yeah.
And Jensen, definitely helped shape him for what was to come, like you said. So.
He's definitely become more compassionate throughout the movies.
Yeah, the heart of the cinematic universe, if you will.
Yeah.
But from the very first suit that he built from the box of scraps in a cave to my favorite was, and I don't know if it's just because it was shiny silver, but the Mark II. When he first takes flight and goes throughout LA, and it was just a cool scene, cool suit. All the way from when he crashes back down and the dummy hoses him down.
Yeah, I love when he's building the suit, and my favorite part is when he launches himself into the wall.
Yeah, you do love watching people get hurt.
And that thing blasting him, and he gets mad at it.
Trying to get the suit off for the first time after he takes flight and goes.
And Pepper finds him. He's like, "Well, this isn't the most embarrassing thing you've ever seen me do."
And in that same scene, there's an Easter egg with the Captain America shield.
That's right.
Which, again, this was the very first one. We had no idea what that would mean, if anything. It was just a cool cameo added, I'm sure, in post-production. But yeah, you had that scene, and then the final scene, which was, I think it was the same suit. But of course, but he was weaker because of the chest piece. Which, going into all of a sudden it's revealed that Obadiah is the big bad of the movie. Kills all the army people who are a part of the 10 Rings, which in this movie, if you read Iron Man comic books, you knew what that meant, that there was a big storyline coming, and we obviously want to talk about it, but we'll save it for the future when we get to that movie.
I have so much to say.
When we get to that Iron Man movie, it should be a fun one. But there was still, Marvel did great about dropping all the stuff about what could potentially come. And then Obadiah is revealed as a big bad. And my only issue with the last third of the movie was the minute Obadiah is introduced, he all of a sudden knew he had the perfect, even though he has not analyzed the arc reactor out of his chest, wasn't allowed to touch it, wasn't allowed to see it. He already had the weapon to get it out of Tony's chest in his home. Knew how to power up the suit, knew how to build the suit, knew how to fly in the suit, knew how to arm the suit, knew how to do everything in the suit that Iron Man could do, that Iron Man himself spent the previous hour and a half doing.
Yeah, it's like he had all those people find all the pieces from the original suit, put them together. They knew how to put them together, and then he looks at it for a couple minutes, then automatically knows how to build this suit, and then at the end knows how to just get into it and use it. Please. How convenient.
I hear you. So, before I get into the finale of the... What you laughing at?
No.
Before we get into the finale of the movie, another thing I did love was Clark Gregg as Coulson, introduced for S.H.I.E.L.D. Can't go! That same tune is the Iron Man tune from back in the day, which was also the ringtone of Brody when Tony Stark called. Little throwaway.
Good call. I didn't even know that.
That's right.
Didn't know that.
Little side bit of information. This is recently we were in Atlanta and we went to an FYE, and she and I, both being the Marvel lovers that we are, were walking out of the store and came across this Bluetooth Iron Man helmet scale speaker for your tablets or phones or devices or whatever. We ended up turning around and buying this baby. So we haven't taken it out of the box yet because we're just having a lot of fun, as you can see, but this will look good in our home, on our mantle, or wherever we put it. So yes, that's what that is, and it just felt right having him here for this podcast. But yeah, Clark Gregg as S.H.I.E.L.D. I thought was great.
Yeah, I love Coulson. And the whole S.H.I.E.L.D. thing, I know they had to introduce it and everything, but at the end, I thought it was kind of forced between him and Pepper when she's like, oh, the strategic homeland, whatever. And he's like, shield. And I was just like, oh, cringe, whatever. I know you had to get it out there, but I don't know. It was just silly to me.
It was.
I don't know.
But yeah, so you have Coulson, and Coulson gets a juicier part towards the end when he goes to rescue Pepper during that whole Obadiah thing. A bunch of agents are killed, but Coulson lived. And then during the finale, you know, it's Iron Man versus Ironmonger. And it got a little over dramatic between all the main actors, which over the top for me was when Iron Man's trying to blow the thing and yells down, "Just do it, but you'll die!" When they're trying to blow the arc reactor and kill Obadiah and all that, that was overly dramatic for me. But again, that's just a nip. That was just something that was just a blatant nitpick. But obviously, Tony Stark survives, and we get into the final moments. But anything that I've missed going into that?
Well, Obadiah, I mean, they said that he was such a huge part of Stark Industries, coming up with, was it Ron? Is that Tony's dad's name? Ron Howard?
Howard Stark.
Ron Howard is
a director.
Right.
To my knowledge, Ron Howard did not come from the Marvel.
Tony's dad, whatever his name is.
Maybe it's his cousin. Ron Howard. So you got Howard Stark and Ron Howard running S.H.I.E.L.D. You got Opie from the Andy Griffith Show and Howard Stark.
My bad.
No, it's good.
You know who I'm talking about. Why
Right,
wasn't
Opie.
Obadiah brought up more later? If he was such a big part of the I don't know. I just thought maybe he would have just been brought up at some point.
No.
I don't know.
I don't know if they really covered if he was involved. You know, he helped run Tony Stark's business, but I don't know if he was that heavily involved with S.H.I.E.L.D. per se or the technology. I don't know if that was made clear or not.
Well, no, not with S.H.I.E.L.D., but just with Stark Industries.
Stark Industries, yeah.
Even in, like, was it Cap, where they talked more about Tony's dad?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just thought maybe his name would have come up, or at least not a big deal. But
no, but yeah, because obviously watching this and watching the Marvel movies, you know that they love bringing back characters and tying them in all the way. You know, Howard shows up in Ant-Man later, and Ron Howard, Opie, you know, he shows up at some point, I'm sure, but. And then when they all go out for pepperoni
I'm not
pizza.
Edit that out.
No, that's good. Pepperoni pizza later. You know, you can't help but think of, you know, pepperoni and not, you know, the pizza. But Marvel does great about dropping all these little stuff. But obviously, I don't know if it was issues with maybe they weren't happy or the actors or whatever. But they obviously didn't touch the Obadiah character again.
And
so.
I mean, they can't touch on everything. That's understandable. But I don't know. I did have a question about when Tony was in the cave, because they were like, you know, they had cameras in there watching everything he was doing. He was supposed to be building the Jericho, and like, how did they not see him building the arc reactor? If they were so involved in what he was doing, why didn't they catch that?
Well, we saw where he turned around and had the arc. How did they know that the arc reactor doesn't power the Jericho?
True.
But in your defense as well, you would think that given the size of that big old missile that you see, and when you think of the Iron Man 1 suit, at some point you would figure out that they're not building a big old missile in there, they're building something different. So.
And then he had a car battery in his chest, and all of a sudden he's got this glowing thing, which in that one scene, it was like the night vision camera. It was like huge. It was like, what is that?
That seemed like a bad edit. But yeah, you know, there's stuff like that obviously was overlooked. But if you, trying to think if there was anything else. Anything else that stood out to you?
The scene where Pepper was helping him put in the new arc reactor.
Oh,
that was awful. It looked terrible. You could just tell that it was just the top of him and then some weird dummy thing, which I understand they had to because she was reaching in his chest.
Do you think Robert Downey was going to have it written into his contract that you're allowed to put a hole in my chest and put a thing in there?
It was just so flat, like seriously flat, and then this hole, and he had weird nipples, and it was just...
Because he was powering down, so he looked sick. But the minute he got the new reactor, he looked buff.
Yeah, he was all buff when he stood up. It was just like...
Have you ever put an arc reactor in your chest?
Yes, this morning.
Oh. Well, then she's the expert. Don't I feel stupid? She's very passionate about that topic, so I apologize. How did it feel when you put the arc reactor in your chest?
Well, you know, simple.
Simple. Nothing like what Robert Downey did. Okay. Well, there we go.
I'm like Obadiah. I can just figure it out.
Well, there you go. I need Wikipedia. She's able to do it on her own. So, anything else before we head into the final act?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So, now that I'm sitting next to the arc reactor expert, so you head into the final scene, and as Fallon mentioned before, you got Coulson kind of recapping what S.H.I.E.L.D. is, and they're trying to help Tony with his cover story, and Marvel decides to take a gamble, which superhero movies typically, or superhero characters, you have the secret identity and then the hero just to protect the secret identity of his loved ones in his own life. And Marvel took a risk, and all of a sudden Tony Stark says, "I am Iron Man," and then boom, straight to the credits, which ironically was the Iron Man song. But absolutely, I remember the audience just floored, loved the scene, couldn't wait to see what was coming. You wanted more, and I love that whole the scene. You know, Christine, I think it was a reporter's name, is interviewing him, and you could tell that Tony Stark, he wanted that fame, he wanted the glory of being known as a superhero.
Yeah, whereas most superheroes, they try to conceal their identity, so that's what you're expecting him to do, and he was supposed to do, but he's Tony Stark.
And he's all about show, so he's like, bring it on, I am Iron Man. So I absolutely love that. I love where they were going. I love the Iron Man movie in general. We saw it a few times, if I remember correctly, that summer. Yeah. And
it's my favorite of the three.
Is it?
Absolutely.
You can't talk about Iron Man without talking about the very last scene, which their end credits and cliffhangers and all that stuff were known prior to this. You know, Pirates of the Caribbean had them, and you know, different movies had end credit scenes, but nothing was a game changer like this scene that was filmed late in the game, and Marvel was trying to figure out which direction they were going to go. And Samuel L. Jackson is introduced as Nick Fury, standing in Iron Man's house with Iron Man. You know, he overrode Jarvis, or Nick Fury did, and Tony was all confused, and all of a sudden there's Iron Man introducing himself, and part of a bigger universe, you just don't know it yet, and leaving an audience wanting even more. And I absolutely love that end credit scene.
Yeah, me too.
It was a game changer for what's to come, and we didn't know what was to come. Again, the only thing that we knew was coming next, which will also be our next review for Marvel, is the Incredible Hulk. We didn't know, Marvel never really said if it was a true sequel to the 2003 Hulk, or just a reimagining or redoing, but they, you know, we knew it was going to be more or less a part of this one, as evidenced by a scene that comes in the Incredible Hulk to tie these two in together, which we'll review in the next one. But you know, there was some excitement going into the Incredible Hulk, but you definitely were excited, or for me, I was definitely excited for the next Iron Man.
Absolutely, yeah.
So with that, any final thoughts on Iron Man 1?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think we covered it. Again, I loved it. I'm excited. I was excited to see where they were going to go with Iron Man and Pepper. You know, Coulson and S.H.I.E.L.D., which, again, that was prior to Samuel L. Jackson. I think the only performance we had was David Hasselhoff in a TV movie. So this was definitely a game changer, and I think they had announced, I don't know if it was before or after, that he's signed a 9-picture deal to come back as Fury. So Marvel was definitely lining some stuff up.
Yeah.
And I was very excited to see where they were going to go.
I didn't know it was going to become as big as it was, and I mean, just...
So
Crazy.
yeah,
But I've loved it, and I'm gonna be really sad when it's all over.
it won't be over. I do agree. You know, because obviously think about we're doing this as Iron Man 1's 10 years ago, and obviously 10 years ago there was still a lot to come. Obviously now 10 years later, you know that certain actors from certain franchises won't be coming back. So I'm hoping that they come up with an excitement that they had 10 years ago for what's to come, either with a franchise or actors or casting. But Iron Man 1, I think it'll be hard to capture the magic that inevitably led to where we are now.
Yeah.
So with that said, the next review we do will be the next one in the franchise, The Incredible Hulk. We will be doing some other ones to kind of break up the Marvel universe, since there are about 20 movies, and we want to do start some other ones too, especially with some summer blockbusters coming up.
Yeah, we won't be just doing all Marvel, because I know not everybody's a Marvel fan.
Which, how can you not be? I mean, look at this.
How can you not be?
I know. I know. So, with that said, it's been a lot of fun. I appreciate you checking back in to see what we have to say about this. But for now, I'm Mark.
I'm Fallon. And I wanted to just say that we did film this in our car on the way home last week. We did a car cast and it turned out great and we loved it, but we did it on my iPad and there was a storage problem, yada, yada, yada.
Well, actually, it went from phone or iPad to phone,
and
we couldn't convert.
It was just a mess.
It was a big mess.
We're still learning, so we're sorry we're a week late, but hope you understand.
And hope you enjoyed this. And we'll try and get another one out to catch back up to you soon within this week. And for now, I think that's all. So for me, stay frosty.